fine sports writer here in town, covers the Bruins and all sports for 98.5thesportshub.com. How you doing, Ty?
Pretty good. You?
I'm pretty good, kid. You're sad because your Cubbies aren't playing well, are you?
No, they're very bad. They are. I think we're already tanking. I don't know, though. That might be a thing.
Oh, it's too bad. All right. But we're not here to talk fucking Cubs. We're here to talk Bruins, NHL. You folks can join us on your smartphone. You can type in the message. We'll chat with you as we go along. We'll answer your questions as we go. More importantly, we want you involved by calling us. Upper right-hand corner of your screen, hit your fan line. Talk to us on your smartphone. We get to see your pretty face. All right, we're here in the third period. We've got Bruins Wild 1-0. Third period. Game's not worth talking about, Ty. This is a glorified exhibition.
This is a public skate. I mean, I'm watching people skate around right now, and it's not a whole lot of fun, and you're just hoping nobody gets injured.
Okay, so we'll just answer questions right out of the chute. Dylan says, you want Carson Kuhlman or Johansson as a second right wing?
I want Johansson, but it's been rough because I think Johansson's been a rough watch since he's come back from his injury. I think he's struggling to find his spot. Cassie said that he needs to find a home for him. Kuhlman, I just wonder, like, that line, is that going to be enough against Toronto if Kuhlman is there? Like, is he ready for that moment? You see these guys, they have some good stretches sometimes. Like, Matt Fraser's an example, right? He scored an overtime goal against, I think it was the Canadiens he scored that one against, or the Red Wings. Anyways, it was 2014. And you start thinking, okay, this is something, and then it kind of fades away when the going gets tough. So it's kind of hard to have a read on Kuhlman as a long-term fit there right now, in my opinion.
You want to be Johansson. I mean, Kuhlman might be a player, but Johansson, you traded for him. You gave up capital for him. Johansson has played with Ovechkin and Backstrom and been on playoff runs. That should be the guy. It should be Pastrnak. I think we agree on that. It should be Pastrnak there and Heinen up with Bergeron. But if they're just reluctant to do that, they don't want to do it. If it's between Kuhlman or Johansson, you want Johansson to be the guy.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. Cassie on the pregame show tonight said he thinks that Heinen does his best work on the left side. So that's kind of an indictment against him being that guy, if you will, on that top line there. So I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're going to keep Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak together for round one. I think that line has been so good against Toronto that they don't want to break it up. Against Tampa, they might do it, but I think Toronto, they're going to keep that group together.
Okay, Steven says, how come they didn't call up Zaboral in these two games? Senyshyn's up here. We'll get to him in a second. But how badly must Zaboral suck if he still can't get a sniff?
Did you see Zaboral's games this year? Like the two games he played for the Bruins? He was
it was way earlier in the year, right?
Yeah, it was the Dallas game and the Arizona game on the road. He was rough. He was a rough watch. He looked like he was terrified of the moment. And I think that was kind of illuminating as to how they view him and how Cassidy views him. He hasn't been up since. I think they're trying to get these guys in a rhythm. Grzelcyk and Miller are playing tonight because they need to get back on the same page, and Miller needs the experience. And sure enough, he gets hurt tonight. But it's they want this grouping to get in sync again.
Okay, so to be honest with you, I watch more Montreal Washington than I have Bruins Wild because Montreal is on the verge of. Are they officially eliminated? Doesn't Columbus need 2 more points?
So Columbus needs a single point now. I think I have to look it all over, but trying to keep up with everything, it seems that Columbus needs either a win or an overtime loss, coupled with something else to just finally punch their ticket.
Okay, so believe me,
Montreal needs help. That's what we should say.
So I think Columbus may have clinched tonight. If Columbus won, they clinched. I'm just trying to call up as I talk to you. I think if Columbus won, they clinch because they're 3 up. And what do you call it? Columbus will need 2 points.
Okay.
Columbus has to win tomorrow or their season finale, and that's it.
Yeah. So Montreal, Claude Julien out again.
And I'm sure you were a Claude guy because all you fucking Bruins beat writers were Claude guys. So I'm not when Columbus, if Columbus clinches, I'm not putting anything past them, okay? If they clinch, I will shake my bare ass in your face and the rest of the Bruins writers for like the 3rd straight year.
Listen, I was a Claude guy in 15 when they wanted to hire him, when they wanted to fire him then. In 16, I was open to it, and then the final year, I wrote at the time, I go, they're going to fire him. Like, there was no way around it. They were going to absolutely fire him that year. Once Cassidy was the assistant coach, I knew it was only a matter of time. Like, So I didn't like the idea of continuing to build a roster to his style, if that made sense. Like, so I mean, I was, but I wasn't. I guess I don't know. I know how.
They didn't respond to him, and I was watching some of this Montreal game tonight, and it's like, boy, they had a little bit of a strange lack of urgency. You know, they engaged, but it wasn't sort of over the top. And I'm like, boy, I've seen that fucking before. I've seen that before. Remember those years the Bruins, they'd be a couple points out of the playoffs the last week of the year, right there. They play like an out of it Florida team or something like that. Ottawa, nothing. Those teams would have nothing to play for. You'd have everything to play for. And you'd look at me and go, it's not quite there. What's wrong? And I saw it with Montreal tonight. I'm like, why aren't they digging in? There's something about Claude and the way these teams finish, man. But this is a story for another day. We're not here to talk about Claude. Ricky asked, do you see the Hurricane fans tonight? So they clinch. Did they do something silly tonight in Carolina? I didn't notice. I
didn't see the post game, but yeah, they're in. That ends the longest drought in the league in terms of playoff appearances. I'll tell you what, any team that goes into that building, it's going to be a tough game. That's one of the loudest buildings in the league in the playoffs. I've had players tell me that it might be the loudest building in the league. Come postseason time, they're going to be jacked up. I mean, that's kind of a dangerous team in my opinion.
Okay, so you know better than I don't know Carolina well. I think that stupid thing they have at the end of games maybe gives them a little life. I know that sounds silly, but what can I tell you?
You're an old school guy. Do you like it or do you hate it?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's after the game. Yeah,
it's an unusual market.
Yeah, I don't mind them doing it. I wouldn't mind if there's another team out there that doesn't like it and decides to show up one day and beat the fucking bag out of them. I think that would be neat too. I'm happy with all those things. But it's Carolina. I mean, what the hell are you going to do? Nick says Columbus is going to beat up Tampa. Any shot Columbus over Tampa?
They need Bob to play a lot better than he has. I'll tell you that. He needs to steal that series if they're going to win that. They're a physical team, though. I mean, out of the remaining field of teams that Tampa could play, I like Columbus playing them because, to his point, they will beat them up. They are a physical team.
Yeah, they're big. There's no question about it. Aaron, this is just for me on the radio. Felger says, I can assure you I was holding my phone like a pizza today on the radio. I just had a bad phone. Aaron, I do remember the call. It sounded like you had how you sounded when you called on the phone. Do not ever call us anyone with a Bluetooth fucking thing in your ear or one of those cords that hang down. Take the phone. This is why we say hold it like a pizza. This is how you're talking to a cell phone, okay? This is how you're talking to it. And if you need to hear, and you shouldn't, because we're just going to give you 30 seconds for a take, and then we're going to hang up on you. But if you need to listen, you press the little speaker function here, and then you can hear it. But this is how you speak into a cell phone, okay? Aaron, thank you. Cameron Taunton, our buddy, he's also on our show all the time. He says, would you please tell Ty that the playoff format right now is fine? I would agree with Cam. The playoff format is fine.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Why do you want your ones and twos meeting in the first or second round and not – I'm sorry, the second round, not the third round? It's so backwards. It's dumb.
So why – I mean, well, it's also – you understand it's cyclical. It doesn't always work like that.
It's worked like that consistently, though. That's the thing.
Has it?
Out of the last 3 years in the second round, you've had the ones and twos face 5 out of a puzzle 6 times. It's consistent now.
Okay, well, so listen. Here's my argument against it. I used to be dead set for it because I sort of like the divisional play and the building of the rivalries, and that was the intention. It hasn't built any rivalries. You know what? At least not in this division, our division. Maybe you can make the case, Washington, Pittsburgh, but Washington, Pittsburgh were a natural rivalry anyway, whether they're playing in the same division or not. I mean, I think, Bruins, Montreal, Washington, Pittsburgh. So, but my point is, it hasn't created these rivalries. Like, we haven't gotten into these Toronto games and hasn't turned into a bloodbath. We haven't gotten into these Tampa games and it's like physical knockdown, drag-out brawls. It hasn't created that extra edge that the league hoped. That's because they don't allow physical play anymore. So it hasn't created the rivalries. That I would tell you. The
closest thing it has to creating that is Tampa and Detroit. Detroit sucks and Tampa's a juggernaut, so now it doesn't even matter. Like that, they're not rivals anymore because they don't meet in the first round anymore. I would say my biggest thing against it is I was looking up the numbers, and we've had a few years now in both conferences where you've had the ones and twos fighting in one bracket in the second round. And then if you broke it down by points in the other second round, you get the 5 against the 7 or the 6 against the 7. And that's not what that shouldn't be happening. You want the best of the best in this time of year, in my opinion.
Okay, there's a lot of chatter here on Clifton and Kevin Miller. All right, and there's a lot of people who want Clifton in the lineup. Again, I won't name the names, but I see you all there on the chats. Dylan says Clifton makes $850 a year and is much better and younger. That's a story for another day. That's about building the roster next year. In terms of the playoffs, I like Clifton. They may have hit on something there. They may have found something. Great, no problem.
Yeah, and they've been good at that.
But
they've been good. They've been good at finding undrafted free agents.
But I want Kevin Miller in the lineup in the playoffs.
Yeah, you need him I think you do, because he eases the burden that's on Chara and Carlo, especially on the PK. And I thought Miller was great in that Ottawa series they lost. I thought he was probably their second best player. And they're going to need that kind of, that stay-at-home rugged defenseman against the Maple Leafs, because they're going to get power play opportunities. They're going to need guys to stand in front and block some shots. And when you get beyond Chara, that's kind of a soft defense. Like, they need somebody like there who can absorb some of those shots and that physicality.
Okay, Clifton's physical, but he's a little small, and so like you're saying, that the size. Let's grab a caller. Johnny in Texas is going to join us on the fan line. You can do the same when he jumps off. You can jump on upper right-hand corner of your screen. Hit that button. Turn the smartphone to you, and we get to talk some hockey. Johnny in Texas is up. How you doing, Johnny?
What's up, guys? How are you doing? You kind of
good, man. What the fuck you doing in Texas?
I work at CBS. I'm the sports anchor down here in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my God, it's so fancy. We got a fancy guy on the line here, Ty.
I love it.
I'm watching. I got the women's 3-point shootout on top and the game on the bottom.
Wow.
The Clifton stuff. Maybe I'm just like bloodthirsty, and I love how he hit that other night. But in the back of my mind, although as much as I want to insert him in the playoff roster, I mean, you can't take Miller's side. What is Miller, like 6'2", 210? I mean, you just can't take that big body out of a playoff series, especially, God forbid, if you get to the second round and you look at Tampa defensively and they just are so fucking deep. So when I start looking at the defensive core, I say you need bodies because, I mean, God forbid you get by Tampa and you get to an Eastern Conference Finals, I mean, you're going to need the fittest of the fit. So I don't think that's going to work out for Clifton. And my last thing before I leave, I want to know if either of you are interested in the Frozen Four at all, because I think UMass, that Makar is filthy. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Johnny will drop you. Thanks for checking in. I'm sort of I like college hockey when BU's in it, where I went. If they're out, I don't really, unless BC's in it, then I'll watch to root against BC. Other than that, it's hard for me to really engage.
Yeah, you know what it is? This time of year, there's just so much pro hockey going on that I'm watching all of that. And when I do get a night off from watching these guys, I want to do anything else besides watch hockey. Like, I know that sounds weird, and like I shouldn't be like that, but like, the free time, it goes out the window this time of year. So I want to enjoy it when I can. So I haven't been following as much. I know he's the prospect he's talking about, UMass. He's an Avs prospect. He's incredible. He's going to be probably on the Avs next year, leading the charge.
Okay. So in terms of, again, Miller and Clifton, we're in agreement. I think Clifton as an eighth this playoffs, fine, great, no problem going forward. Again, maybe they've hit on something. A nice, cheap, bottom-pairing defenseman with some physicality, no problem. In these playoffs, experience, size, they're already going to be skating Grzelcyk and Krug as it is. And Clifton, while he plays big, is just a little small. What were your thoughts on Senyshyn tonight, Ty? Because I actually kind of noticed him a little bit.
Yeah, he's been pretty good. I think he's been, he hasn't gone on the board yet, but you notice him, to your point. You notice him on his shifts, and I think – I know you hammer him and you hammer the draft, and I understand that, but I'm not writing the kid off because he has the raw skills, and you're seeing the raw talent here.
I don't know a thing about him. I just say they've had 40 call-ups, whatever that number is, 17 call-ups. I'm just guessing. And he's not one of them. What the hell does that tell you?
I think it tells you that they are committed to fully developing him versus because they don't trust him to just go out there and play a bottom six role. Like Coleman can do that. Coleman he played the NCAA, which I think those kids are always more polished for bottom six roles naturally because that's the game down there. I think he was just so raw that they wanted to make sure that he was as close to ready as he possibly could be.
Okay, answering questions. Dan McSweeney asked me, am I doing any post-game shows during the playoff? Yes, I'm glad you asked. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, NBC Sports Boston, myself, and Tony Amonte, and his mullet. So just like usual, me and Amonte on TV after every single Bruins postseason game.
Is he still coaching?
Yeah, he coaches Thayer.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good. Believe it or not. Of course they would. Why wouldn't they be good? Allison asks you, Ty, any idea where Corrali is in his recovery?
It's still trending towards a middle of the first round, maybe later the first round return. I think game 4, game 5, you're looking at that. It depends, though. If they go down 0-2 or 1-2, I mean, do they rush him back? Do they see what he can do? It's so I think that's where he is. Really nothing has changed on that front. But he's a big loss for them. I think that's going to be a sneaky big loss. I
agree.
He's the only left-handed centerman on their team. And they kind of need that. Like, they need guys who can win draws lefty, and it's been a problem. And Cassie talked about in the Detroit game that losing some of those faceoffs on the PK have come back to hurt them. So
you know what? That's why we have beat guys, folks. They keep track of the left shot, right shot, faceoff, circle stuff. That's sort of the line for me. Left shot, right shot, who's in the faceoff dot. I'm just not going to keep track of that anymore. That's why we have Ty Anderson. Let's grab Cam in Taunton. He's going to join us now on the phone. You hear him on the radio all the time. What does he look like? What does Cam in Taunton look like? Do you have any idea? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Cam in Taunton joins us on the fan line. Pop him up.
There he is.
What's up, Cam? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Mike. Good to see you guys. So I just got a question for both of you. McAvoy in that game last week against Tampa, when he had a lot of ice time, really struggled. And so your first round, you're going to be facing, Tavares and Matthews and Marner, and he's going to be getting a lot of ice time because Chara can't lug what he used to. Does that at all scare you guys?
Cam, that's the game where John Moore went out, right?
Yeah, again, down in Tampa, yeah.
So I don't, Ty, you tell me. He's got a fat face. How's Charlie's conditioning?
I think he'll be fine because that series against Toronto is built for what he can do well. Like, that is a run and gun kind of series. He'll have chances against them. I'm curious to see how they match him up. Like, sort of the Cam's point here is do they keep Bergeron's line out there with Chara and McAvoy? Do they go for the stack, or do they try to balance it out? You've seen Krug and Carlo out there with Bergeron a lot this year. I'm curious what matchup the Chara-McAvoy pairing gets, and B, what the line they're with is. Because if they're with a bigger, heavier, slower line, like Coyle and Backus kind of line, that's going to put a lot more pressure on McAvoy to make the right reads and to be out there for longer shifts.
Okay. You also mentioned something to me before about matchups in terms of matching up the Bruins lines on Toronto. Who does Tavares play with? Does he play with – so Matthews and Tavares, that's sort of 1-2. They're 1-2 punch. And
yeah.
Who plays with who, and how do you match that up?
So the Tavares plays with Mitch Marner, which is an incredibly effective 1-2. Like, that Marner's is a great 1-2. I think it might be their best one, honestly. And then your second line, or your first, whatever you want to call it there, is Austin Matthews, and he plays with William Nylander and Kasperi Kapanen as well. They move it around a little bit, but right now, what makes that team dangerous is their third line is Kadri and Patrick Marleau. And that line, that has some experience, some playoff experience, some playoff pedigree. They both scored some big goals. So who does that line match up against? We'll have to see there what they do, but that's the big combo for the Maple Leafs are those two lines.
And how do you match them up if you're the Bruins?
I put Bergeron on Tavares, and I put the Matthews. I let Chara and McAvoy handle Matthews' line. I think that's kind of the way to go. I've been doing some research on this for the last little bit for our playoff preview and whatnot. Did you know that since Matthews came to Toronto, the Maple Leafs have not scored a 5-on-5 goal or an even strength goal against the Bruins with Matthews on the ice when Bergeron and Chara out there together? It's like 90 minutes, too. It's not like it's been 10 minutes. 90 minutes. And he hasn't scored with them out there. So I'm curious if that affects what they do.
Okay, a lot of commenters are saying that we got to get Carlton and Norwell on this thing. I agree. What the hell does that man look like? What does Carlton and Norwell look like? I agree.
Maybe his Twitter is like what we think his Twitter account is. It's Silver Fox. So you may be surprised.
Okay, so he's a mysterious man. Mike and Woburn, too. Yes, all of those. Nick asks, do the Bruins need to win the Toronto series in 4 or 5 to get past Tampa? I mean, not necessarily, but I do want to see a series like that to make me feel better about the Bruins, because I want to see them assert themselves. They should beat Toronto. They're a more complete team. They're a better team in all 3 zones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think they're more playoff built. And so they should win that series. They should establish themselves as the better team and not have to pull something out of their ass in the third period of Game 7 again, Ty. I want to see them close that series out a little sooner.
It'd be nice. And I think, it'd be really great is if they could win the series on the road, like say Game 6 or something in Toronto, prove that you can win in any building. I think this team's done a good job of that this year, but in the playoffs, different animal, as we know. And also at the same time, I think that's important, but you need to see the team that Tampa plays put up an actual fight. New Jersey was a waste of time last year. They were out in 5 games. They weren't even close games. So you need Tampa's opponent to put up at least a little bit of a fight there.
Christian asked earlier, if Toronto loses in the first round, what do they do? A lot of money spent on Tavares. Toronto's a fun team to watch lose because they care. The fans care so much up there, and they're so miserable, and they have this sort of like Red Sox fans used to have. That's the analogy everyone uses. Toronto up there is sort of like the Red Sox used to be here. Fellowship of the miserable, incredibly passionate fans, but miserable and negative and always expecting the other shoe to drop, sort of a loser mentality. It's awesome. It's delicious.
Yeah. So what do? You can't fire Babcock. He has 4 more years left. You can't do it. So, they're going to trade Nylander probably because if you look at his contract, they don't want to pay that for him. There's no way they want to pay that for him. So I think he's gone in the summer, but they added Jake Muzzin. That hasn't fixed their problems. What's the next move? It's a really weird sort of situation for them.
Yeah, and so, they have to reconstitute their team. I don't know. How about D and goaltending? I don't know, just a thought. I think Babcock's okay. I like Babcock. Is he overrated? Of course. He's the highest rated or highest paid coach in the league. Probably doesn't deserve that, but he's not the issue there. It's sort of the way the roster is constructed. There's no D. Yeah,
and are they going to keep Jake Gardner? Probably not, but you almost kind of have to, given his production, who are you replacing that with? So they have some depth issues, I think, as well on that back end, especially. And it's paying guys. They got to pay Marner, and Marner's going to be just as expensive as Matthews, if not just a touch below it. But I don't know how they wiggle out of this. It really does feel like it's cup or bust this year for them, and they have to go through the Bruins and the Lightning to get there.
But Cam, you can put up Tommy and Braintree. We'll get to him in 1 second. Put him up, though. Jonathan says Felger loves harping on green teamers, and rightly so. But this guy roots for the Bruins. Do Bruins fans think I root for the Bruins? Most of you think I'm a negative asshole. And I hyped up McAvoy like he was a second coming. He's good, but why don't you have a segment on you've hyped him up too much, like you've hyped up Tatum? I was ripping Tommy 1 second. I was ripping McAvoy earlier in the year about how worried I was about this guy. Couldn't get on the ice, late for meetings, maybe a little out of shape. I was really concerned about McAvoy. And he still hasn't shown the exact flash that he did when he first got here. But overall, I think he's going to be a good player for him. I wouldn't pay him what he wants. How's that?
Is he out of shape, or does he just have a fat face? I
don't know. That thing the other night when he got –
Some of us have fat faces.
To Cam's point, that scared me a little bit when he sort of wore down towards the end of that game. But he's not worth the money he's asking for. Tommy, how you doing? What do you got?
Good, guys. How are you? I was going to ask you about Senyshyn, but you already touched on it, and there's not much more to say than what you guys already said. I guess I'm curious your thoughts on say – I don't want to be a downer, but say the playoffs go exactly like they did last year. They slip by Toronto. They get knocked out by Tampa. You'd like to think they get 6 or 7 games out of Tampa in the second round, but they get knocked out by Tampa. Can you be mad by that result?
So, Tommy, you can't really, can you?
No.
You can't. I know what you mean. I'd love to lose my mind. Let's see how they lose. If Tuukka shits his pants, believe me, we'll get on Tuukka. Or if, Marchand takes a donut or Krejci takes a donut, we'll get on those guys for sure. But Tampa's not just good. They're not just better than you. They're like the best team in the NHL in the last, I don't know, Ty, you tell me. The last 10 years or something like that?
I haven't seen a team this good and this dominant since the Red Wings. That's what it is. The in prime Red Wings when you had Lidstrom and then you had Datsuk and Zetterberg. That 08, that 07, 08, 08, 09 Red Wings were some of the best teams I've ever seen in my life. And even before that, they were great too. So, no, you can't get too mad. I would get mad at Don Sweeney, personally. I would get mad at him for not getting everything you needed and more. You've overhyped these prospects for years, and you get Johansson and Coyle, and these are fine players, but I was told this prospect group was some of the best in hockey. And
Tommy, what do you think? Tommy, who would you be pissed at if they lose in the second round?
I'd be inclined to be pissed at Sweeney, sort of what Fertai is saying, for not making the big move that you might have needed to make a year ago, 2 years ago. like Ty said, I feel like for a couple of years there was all this talk about, oh, the Bruins prospects are great. Now they traded away Donato, and the rest of them, Heinen, Bjork. Even there's started to be some, I guess, like I've seen a couple questions about whether or not Jack Studnicka is really going to be all that great of an NHLer. I think the Bruins do a really good job of overhyping their prospects when they draft them and as they're developing them. So far, they haven't really been able to move anyone for a super big piece. Coyle's been good, hasn't scored a lot, but been solid. If they can't get through that round and then you lose Johansson to free agency and we have Coyle for another year, then you're just back to square one. You have to make another big move, and that Sweeney hasn't been able to do that so far.
Okay, Tommy, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it. It's all fair. I mean, maybe I'd blame Sweeney overall, but what? We're gonna get on him because he can't match Tampa's roster? I mean, who can? That's he wasn't gonna be able to match that roster at the deadline no matter what he did. So let's just see. Who to blame. I'm sure we'll blame somebody, but consider this too. If Tampa then loses in the next round, if they lose in the conference finals if they don't make it all the way to the Cup finals, that's going to diminish the loss to the Bruins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's just see how that all plays out, folks. I only have a couple minutes left. I've cut a little bit short, so if you want to jump in, you do it now. Other than that, we're going to wrap it up here soon. Jeff C. says Chicago used to be the blueprint for developing hockey players. Not sure what happened there. I still don't get what happened to Chicago. I don't. It's Taves, it's Kane, it's Seabrook, it's Keith. They're all still out there. Like, what happened to that team?
It's exactly that, though. It's a lot of money tied up with those guys. None of them took a team-friendly deal. And you saw what you're able to do. If you can't draft and plug guys in when you have players making $10.5 million, it's really hard to win. And they've experienced that. Listen, Taves and Kane account for $21 million. And they're worth it, yes, but they didn't have the young players coming in to help, sort of bridge that gap there. And so they've had to sign a lot of older veteran players for league minimum or close to it. And those guys aren't really what they need right now. So that's been the big problem there, in my opinion, is that they haven't had that pipeline continuing even when these guys all got paid.
Yeah, a commenter just said Pittsburgh made it work. Jeff C. said Pittsburgh made it work. It's true, but they had those young guys coming through.
And so Sherry, all these guys.
Right, exactly. So that's sort of the difference. There was one more that I wanted to weigh in here. Someone said, I watched Matt Barzal skate laps around Florida in overtime tonight. Sweeney big time whipped on that one for Senyshyn, and that really angers me. So we'll go back to that with Sweeney for sure if they lose. I'll just say this about Senyshyn. I found that interesting that you're saying that they want him to be fully developed before he comes up. He's not going to get his training up here. It's going to be down there. And when he comes up here, they want him to be more – I just think that's showing a lot of patience. I don't know. That's just an interesting approach to me.
I mean, think about it. He's still younger than Carson Coleman. Like, he's only 22. And you look back at Marchand, right? Like, Marchand was – I'm not going to say that Senyshyn's Marchand. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, you look at Marchand's first 20 NHL games, not even close to the player that he was the following season and year after that and what he is today. So they're patient with certain guys. And I think this coaching staff, like, you listen to Cassidy talk about Senyshyn, it's all about the 5-on-5 game. It's all about making sure he's making an impact. They know he can score. They know he can skate. It's just a matter of everything else. Like, they don't want to put him in a role he's not ready for.
Okay. There you go. That's going to wrap it up, Ty. Thanks for taking the time to do this. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Wish the game was more fun, but here we are.
Yeah, fuck the game. It's okay. Next week, I think we'll do it. It's Thursday. Again, I'm doing TV stuff, so I don't know exactly where I'm going to be doing it or if I'm going to be doing it, but we will definitely have a third period live here on FanCred for Bruins playoff hockey. They'll open up Thursday night against Toronto at the Garden, and so we'll have you covered for that. Ty, thanks again. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.